All right, everybody. So let's see here. We've got some cool pendants that we're going to be using. So is there anything that you guys would like to see done first? You want to see that one? Okay. Okay, so for that one, I'm using the garnet patina, the ruby, I use some topaz and some marble as well. That's this. Already took that. So this is the Painted Barn set. So I'm actually using 3 different sets. So 2 from that set, from the Painted Pickup, and then the ruby. I think that's in the stained glass window, that set. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my paintbrush is almost completely dry. And where's that little guy? Here we go. So I'm going to want to make sure that my paintbrush is completely dry because the patinas are water soluble. You don't want to be mixing them with water because they will bubble. If you want to create more of a wash, that's what you use the glaze for. Where did it go? Right here. So there's the glaze. And I can show you guys a little bit more on that later. So I'm just going to grab some patina, some of the ruby and the garnet, go on the outsides of that design.
Can your brush be completely dry?
Yes. You want it to be almost completely dry. Okay. So I'm not being too careful with where I'm painting, because I'm going to be reliefing the top of that later. So I'm going to grab some of that yellow as well, some of the topaz. And so when I'm using that topaz, it's turning kind of into that orange color because it's blending with the ruby and the garnet. So then once I've got that layer, I'm going to go in with the marble and just kind of create some highlights throughout that piece. In the middle. So you can see how that marble is reacting with those colors, starting to blend. Okay. So I'm going to heat set that a little bit. And so the patinas dry really fast. They're going to be almost completely dry in about 2 minutes. So you want to work pretty quickly. And so next I'm going to use this dark side of the reliefing block. And so that side was made for the patinas, and that's going to relief that design. So I'm going to bring that pattern back through the front.
So were you wanting to leave that a little bit wet, or was that completely dry already?
So yeah, no, good question. You want to leave it a little bit tacky because they are permanent. So once they're permanent, it's going to be harder for that to come off.
Okay. Pretty.
So there's that. So there's our first one. I'll leave that out there for you guys to look at.
Could we just borrow that so we share pictures?
All right, so next, let's try this guy. So that's going to be our Terracotta Nouveau circle. Let me clean this surface off. So the cool part about this as well is that if you're using the craft sheet, you can just mop up that patina and kind of scrape it, and that's going to come up right away. So just scrape that off. Get a clean surface. All right. So this is all the faded pickup line of patinas that I'm going to use. So this is the garnet, the earth, and the marble.
This is a new one.
Oh, did I say faded pickup? I meant painted barn. My bad. There's so many I get mixed up. All right, so there's the painted barn that I'm using. All right. Okay, so this piece actually started out as a plain blank. And what I did is ran it through the embossing machine by Sizzix. We've got embossing and etching folders, and the emboss is going to leave a thick design like that. And then the etch is going to be a fine line detail. For this one, I'm going to be using the emboss. And then so that it started out flat like that, you can pass that around. Okay. So I'm going to grab some of the garnet and the earth and just kind of paint on in rough sections. Don't have to be too careful because we want that rustic look. And then I'll go in with the marble and use that as a highlight once again. So when I'm using the other colors, like say if I'm using ruby, I always like to go in with a lighter patina, pink version of that as well, just to kind of create cool variants. And then with the verdigris, I'll use the marine. So just cool things to keep in mind. And then maybe I'll add some more color with some clay. So yeah, don't be afraid to use different colors from some of the different lines. Okay. So I'm going to heat set that a little bit. And then relief once again with that dark side of the reliefing block. So there's 3 different colors on the reliefing block. There's the dark side, there's the white, and that's going to be for just the plain metal when you're highlighting metal. And then the light gray side is a polishing, and that's smooth. So then we've got that really cool terracotta.
Really beautiful. Your relief's coming out far more even than when I did it.
Yeah, so
You do it all the time.
the thing to keep in mind with that is you want to make sure it's still a little bit tacky. You don't want it too wet or you don't want it too dry, so you want to kind of find a balance.
Too much patina on. If you put more patina on, is it more difficult to get the relief looking like this?
You know what? Are you talking about just overall your whole pendant when you put it on?
Yeah.
It just depends on how dry it is.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how much or how little you've used. So there's that piece.
And did you put some sort of film?
Yeah, so I'll show you guys that right now. Okay, so here's the craft insert. And so this is the same material that we've been using. It's also heat resistant, which is awesome. So I'm going to place that in there. Okay. So with the UD, I'm just going to place it in the center. And I'm going to let that heat. And then also to speed it up a little faster too, you can cover the surface.
Huh.
Usually you'd use the lid, but I'm using that to even out the pot. So you can just use paper or anything you've got laying around. Okay, so that's melted. And I still have some sections that are uneven, so I'm going to just go in and add more. So you can see that it's melting and it's becoming clear. Okay, so that's about ready. So if you notice, I've got some pooling going on. Once I take that out, I'm just gonna slide it around with the bead awl. And that's gonna get rid of the extra excess of beauty that's collected around the piece. So that's going to be about ready in probably a little under a minute.
Do you have to redo the whole?
Yeah, usually I do because sometimes it'll cover it, but that time it all pooled around it, so I got lucky. So yeah, if that would happen, you just go through and twist through and remake that hole. And so to check if it's ready to go, I'm just gonna grab, you can use your fingernail, you can use a pencil or a tool, and you just are gonna wanna make sure it's hard. So it's still a little hot. I usually can tell, but. So yeah, now that's hard. So it's really fast. All of this is really quick, which is awesome for impatient crafters like myself. And so another cool thing about this Yudi is that if I want to create a matte finish, you can go in with steel wool and just kind of buff the surface, and it's going to create that cool aged matte look. And then you can actually put it back in the pot if you don't like that matte look, and add a little bit of the Yudi over the top, and it's going to reactivate and make it shiny again. So there's that step.
I love this one.
I know. I'm going to do that one next for you guys.
Good. Yeah, that would be
Okay, so I'm going to relief with that white side of the reliefing block. And if you see on this finished pendant, that filigree, I'm going to be doing that next.
So what are you doing here?
So now I'm just reliefing off the top surface, and that's just highlighting those raised areas once again. Just makes it look a little more finished. And so I'm going to wrap that around the back and just kind of upscale the blank that we've created. So I don't need any glue for this. This is just going to crimp onto the sides and it's going to be secure. So center that. Fold the ends, and you can use your fingers too. Fold that end. And just crimp it down hard. All right. And so that's going to be secure. All right, so for this last one, I didn't use any of the patinas. This is going to be all embossing powders.
See what you did wrong.
All right. So put in the craft sheet. place that blank in. And I like to use bezels as well, but for this one I'm just going to use the plain copper blank. All right. Okay. So I'm just going to take a pinch, and you need a tiny, tiny amount because that's going to spread pretty well.
This is embossing antiquities?
Yep. These are the distress powders and antiquities, and just plain embossed powders. Any embossed powders work.
Okay.
I'm going to use some copper. So with the distress powders, it's going to look a little spotted, but that's the look that I want to create.
When you say the distress powders,
These that I've been using.
they're all distress?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
So there's distress powders, and this one is actually just the plain embossing powder, and then this is an antiquities. And then get a lighter color in there for the highlight. So I'm just sprinkling it in there. Okay, and so with these embossing powders, if you leave them in the melting pot for too long, they're going to start to oxidize and they'll start to turn white. So you just want to keep an eyeball on it. I'd
Just
say
the distress or all of them?
all of them, all of the embossing powders. I'd say about, if you leave it in there for about 15 minutes, that's when it's going to start to change color, which is cool if you like that look, but just keep in mind that that's going to happen. I need to grab this bird. Okay, so I'm using the swooping swallow. So I'm, same thing, just gonna relief that, highlight some of the areas to make it have that finished look. Oops. And so I'm gonna place this in pretty carefully because once you have it on the blank, you don't want to be moving it around too much because if you move it around, it'll oxidize as well. So I'll kind of scooch it a little bit so you can see what happens. But if you look closely, up there at the top, you see how that's turning white?
What's turning white, the bird or
The embossing powder is
Oh,
turning white.
underneath it, okay.
Just like I said about the oxidization. Okay. So then I'm going to take the UD. And that's going to seal that bird to the blank. So you can watch as that heats. It'll spread and make sure you're getting into those crevices in the wings. How are we doing on time? Do you know what time
I
it
don't
is?
know. What time are you?
I don't know.
Quarter of 9.
I just listened to them when they said to change.
They'll probably come around and
Have we been here for 15 minutes? Because I can never tell. I totally get lost every time.
it feels like just now to say.
Izzy's
does.
saying it's been 20. I
Okay.
think he must have a timer on his
Oh, it's
camera.
been 20 already. Good.
See what I mean? You
I know,
totally just
yeah.
like lose time. And so
There's rarely dinner at my house.
I'm gonna cover that hole just to show you guys what I can do if it accidentally gets covered. So see how that's pulling around the pendant? I'm gonna take it out and then I'm gonna poke through that hole and move it off, and that's gonna slide it away from all of the excess UD that's pulled up around the blank.
That's my favorite one.
I know, I love it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really has that cool aged antique-y look, which I love. So same thing, just check it, and that's already starting to get hard. So this is really cool because everything is super fast. The UD is super fast drying. The patina is drying 2 minutes. So tons of cool things you can do fast, which is really awesome for impatient designers like myself. Thank you. So let that cool.
Really lovely.
May I see the finished one, the cool one?
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah,
Because I'm impatient.
it's really lovely, isn't it? It looks nice with the UT over the.
If we sell
swallow
this
as well.
already, can we take any of these for samples?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. Should we check with Alan?
You can just take one. That's fine.
Really nice.
So it's still kind of warm, so be careful, but there's that finished one.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
It's quite warm.
And then did I do this one yet? I don't think I did.
No.
Let me do that one really quick. It's super fast. Hopefully I can find it. I think it's in here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to be using the patinas and the relieving block.
Sure.
Do you ever put it directly onto the metal?
You know what, I do when I have a larger surface, but when it's this small, I like to keep it off to the side and kind of be able to control what I have on my piece.
When you have a larger surface, then you spread it out with the paintbrush?
Yeah. Yeah, you could drop it on and then just spread it around. Okay.
Countdown.
Woo!
We've had a 5-minute call already.
First you were worried you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You're like,
Do you think you're overrunning, mate?
Okay, I'll be really fast.
You've got 3 minutes.
I promise.
Alan?
They're going to come back in a minute. 2 minutes.
I know. 30 seconds, 10 seconds.
Can I move that UT bottom?
Yeah, take a look at it.
No, I want to watch you.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I thought you wanted to see what was in it. All right, so I'm just going to take the blue and the green and use the marble as a highlighting. So this one's just really simple, but it still looks amazingly beautiful, which is crazy.
The marble is basically white.
Yep. So then I'm going to take the blue around the edges. And then I'm going to take that topaz and I'm just going to go in the tips, and that's going to actually turn into green because it's mixing in with that blue that we used. So just patina around the edges. And you can be as careful or as uncareful as you want, just depending on the look that you want. So let that dry a little bit. Perfect timing.
Oh, pretty.
So I'm just going to sand that, and that's going to be done. Okay, so then there's the last one.
Oh, very good.
That's beautiful.
Thank you guys for being such awesome listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you.